El Chapo just revealed his secret meeting with the DEA in 1998 saved his life. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera was defending himself in 1997. He reached out to the only people he thought might be able to help him, the US Drug Enforcement Administration. Locked up for the past 5 years, cornered by enemies, cut off from his family by enemy shooters he worried might be waiting outside the prison walls, and living in constant fear of being extradited to the United States, he reached out to them. Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we will tell you about the meeting with the DEA in 1998 that saved El Chapo's life. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you can do so by clicking here. On November 7th, 1997, one of the US Marines on duty outside called Joe Bond while he was in his office at the American Embassy in Mexico City. The Marine informed him that there was a man who had a message for the DEA. Bond put on a jacket and walked downstairs to find out what was happening. The visitor, who Bond later referred to as Electra, was there to deliver a message to Bond. El Chapo had been imprisoned for several years in the maximum security Puente Grande prison on the outskirts of Guadalajara, where he was claimed to have lived comfortably with the help of the cash he distributed to the guards and prison authorities. Now, El Chapo wanted to converse, according to Electra, with the DEA. Bond responded simultaneously interested and dubious. Really? Yes, Electra replied. But they had to exercise caution. El Chapo instructed them to use the codename Tito through Electra. The DEA officers could not simply stroll into Puente Grande the way they might stroll into a prison in the United States. So Bond's superiors in Washington needed some convincing. He spent the following months devising a strategy that would allow them to enter the prison in the safest possible manner. But he would need the Mexican government's approval to do it. The only person Bond felt confident enough to speak to and who had the authority to grant him permission was José Luis Santiago Vasconcelos, a Mexican Attorney General's office representative who deals with drug trafficking and goes by the Spanish abbreviation PGR. To Puente Grande, they would have to pose as someone else. El Chapo had ordered that no one, even the prison warden and the guards, was to be aware of his contact with the DEA. Finally, on March 2nd, 1998, Vasconcelos informed Bond that the plan could go as long as they agreed to bring José Pepe Patio Moreno, a PGR representative for whom Vasconcelos personally vouchsafed. Agents Bond and Villalobos were set up to pose as sociologists by Vasconcelos. On March 4th, Bond contacted Electra and instructed him to inform El Chapo that they would be arriving soon. The small delegation traveled to Puente Grande the following day by car after flying to Guadalajara. When Joe Bond, Larry Villalobos, and Pepe Patio arrived at Puente Grande's outer boundary, they discovered a welcoming party of heavily armed guards had been waiting for them. The two DEA agents, the Mexican prosecutor, and the officer in command poured out of their car and formally introduced themselves before the officer, who solemnly verified each man's credentials. To identify himself as José Bonilas, a fictitious name he had been using since his first days as a police officer back in Mississippi, Bond handed out a false driver's license that he kept with him for undercover missions. Given that they were both of Mexican heritage, native Spanish speakers, and holders of sociology-related credentials, the two DEA agents didn't seem out of place when they pretended to be Mexican sociologists. They were instructed to follow the officer in charge of the security detail to the prison's entrance by a nod. Puente Grande looms above the lush Jalisco countryside like some terrifying inverted oasis, with its sea of grey concrete walls, razor-sharp concertina wire, and gloomy watchtowers. When they arrived at the prison's administrative door, a guard led them to the warden's office, where he waved them in with a frigid greeting. Bond soon saw that the warden did not share their belief. The official grinned knowingly at them and glanced at them before remaining silent. The DEA operatives and the Mexican prosecutor observed their surroundings while they waited. The room had a sofa, a table, and chairs, as well as 2 windows with metal bars that looked out onto the jail yard. It was set up for mental health assessments. About 15 minutes, or possibly half an hour later, a guard opened the door and the person they had come to see entered. El Chapo shook each of his visitors' hands as the door shut behind him. He was wearing prison khakis, the same ones he wore in front of the press pack in 1993 after being brought before the country for the first time after being apprehended in Guatemala. Bond made his introduction after being confident that the guard was gone. Bond greeted the prisoner. "Good afternoon. Tito here." El Chapo lowered himself to the floor in a push-up posture and, with Bond, Villalobos and Patio watching, looked beneath the door to see if anyone was there and listening in. El Chapo stood up again and gave the group another once-over once he appeared convinced that no guards were spying. He started mumbling something, almost in a whisper, and it was apparent he was confused. Immediately after reassuring El Chapo that he was safe once more, Bond presented Villalobos, Patio, and himself, emphasizing that despite Patio's affiliation with the PGR, they had complete faith in him. El Chapo glared at Patio but nodded in agreement. He started talking about his enemies and the threats made against him in a tense voice. El Chapo claimed that they are commonplace. He was concerned that the members of the Arellano Felix network who were present in Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Aguascalientes might try to assassinate him, his family members, or anyone else who was connected to him. He was ranting. I was like, "Just slow down, man," Bond said. El Chapo was used to being in charge, so Bond realized he needed to establish himself and let El Chapo know that they were making the decisions in this situation. "He had great charisma, I'm not kidding you," Bond said. "He obviously had the temperament to take control of things. He thought that because we knew who he was, that he was going to intimidate us, but he wasn't going to intimidate us." El Chapo began to update the agents on the situation once he had finally calmed down and expressed his profound mistrust of Mexican government authorities. Before he could continue, El Chapo made it clear what he wanted: a guarantee of his family's safety, resolution of his unresolved charges in the United States, and placement in a prison where he could speak face-to-face with an associate he trusted to gather up-to-date information on his enemies that El Chapo could feed to the DEA. Then, Patio became stern in response. He informed the prisoner that El Chapo was serving a 20-year sentence. The gang left El Chapo to serve the remainder of his term after coming in good faith to hear intelligence that would aid in the fight against drug trafficking by the Mexican and American governments. They had no interest in friendly conversation and nothing to lose by leaving. Bond intervened, warning El Chapo that before the US government even started to examine his requests, he would need to demonstrate his willingness to collaborate. El Chapo solemnly nodded. "I will speak honestly to you, and I will give you my word on everything I'm about to say," he pledged. He mentioned the Arellano Felix brothers and the incidents that precipitated the conflict between his and their factions. An undercover DEA report, later written directly based on the notes Bond and Villalobos took at the encounter, claimed that the brothers were clever, wealthy, and exceedingly dangerous. El Chapo warned that the brothers were sending double agents to serve as DEA spies and gather information from their meetings with the gringos. El Chapo claimed that he had learned about the group's drug and money smuggling operations under the border between Baja California and California within the previous 6 months. He identified the persons who he claimed were in charge of handling the group's Colombian contacts. El Chapo remained silent when the agents questioned him about the Arellano Felix clan's political protection. He declined to discuss politicians. "They're too dangerous," he said. El Chapo then shifted the conversation's focus. He desired to talk about El Guero Palma. This surprised Bond, he recalled. El Guero and El Chapo had been on the outside for years, and as far as they knew, they were still friends and business partners here in Puente Grande. El Chapo, though, claimed that they had not spoken for close to 4 years. He claimed that they had severed relations in 1994 after El Guero gave the order to kill Sal Lopez, the brother of El Chapo's second wife, Griselda Lopez. Sal Lopez was the brother of El Chapo. Despite their years of working together and their shared hate for the Arellano Felix brothers, El Chapo claimed he was obliged to cut connections with El Guero because he had ordered the murder without authorization and El Chapo's approval. El Chapo informed the agents that he was ready to share the information on El Guero if it would aid his case due to the breakdown in his relationship with his erstwhile companion. With a week's notice, he could provide information on the entire infrastructure of the organization, including the corrupt officials protecting them in their home base of Tepic in the state of Nayarit, as well as along the border in the city of San Luis Rio Colorado, where El Guero's people frequently cross drugs, he claimed. He also claimed he could provide information on the locations of drug storage facilities and weapons caches. El Chapo, however, would have to be relocated to accomplish this. He offered that he be sent to a prison in Mexico City, pointing out that the ongoing legal matter in the nation's capital would serve as a convenient pretext for the change. About 2 hours passed during the meeting. El Chapo warned the agents and Patio as the situation came to a close. He asserted that the Arellano Felix brothers intended to kill the former Attorney General and current ambassador to France and blame him for the crime. To be clear, he did not participate in any threats made against the former prosecutors. They did not cross paths again. Prosecutors in the United States informed Bond shortly after visiting Puente Grande that any more encounters could jeopardize El Chapo's future legal cases and instructed him to break off contact. Bond was furious. Most of the persons Bond trusted to work with him on the expedition are now deceased. Before dying in a mysterious plane crash in 2008, José Luis Vasconcelos had been the target of numerous assassination attempts. Vasconcelos' employer, Mariano Herrán Salvati, passed away in 2009, following his conviction. Patio and 2 associates, a federal prosecutor named Oscar Pompa Plaza and a Mexican army captain named Rafael Torres Bernal, were crossing the border into Mexico on April 10, 2000. Roughly 2 years after his trip to Puente Grande with Bond and Villalobos. The 3 were captured on surveillance footage at the Otay Mesa border crossing in California, driving into Mexico, but they soon disappeared. The 3 guys were discovered 2 days later in their automobile, which had been steered or swerved into a ditch. According to an autopsy report, their internal organs had been severely damaged, and the murderers had driven a considerable truck over them. Bond continues to ponder whether their meeting at Puente Grande was to blame for his friend's horrifying demise. Many honorable police officers in Mexico paid the price in the past and the present. That is all for this video. We will be back soon with another informative video. See you all soon. Don't forget to like and share this video.